Hello, everyone, and welcome to Links Without Friends. Hey guys, how are you doing? They're doing well. So, as you can see, it's a little bit different this week. Might be a bit of a struggle. Probably going to be a little bit shorter than usual. I'm not going to say that to make up for this, that you should shower me in super chats. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that you should give this video thousands of likes. I'm not going to do it. I'm not even going to suggest that you use the link in the description and go to our store and buy some high quality t-shirts. I'm not going to do that because I have integrity. But you know who doesn't have integrity? The governments of the world. Let's talk about it. ICE. ICE has awarded Clearview AI 9.2 million. Honestly, not the largest number, but it's not the money that we worry about here. It's what it's doing, which is facial recognition, which means that any kind of ICE enforcement, which we have pretty much everywhere at this point, is going to be carrying around body cams that are using facial recognition, and they're probably going to be tapping into some other camera options to run that facial recognition on. And whether you support ICE's endeavors or not, this should worry you because obviously you're going to get caught up in this. Everybody is. And I don't think that they'll limit it to just the non-citizens here. Remember when we did warrantless wiretapping only for non-citizens? Just remember how that played out. And here's a headline that we just keep seeing. And the details change slightly, but the overall pattern is just the same over and over. It's weird pitching to myself here. That's right. Trump is going to impose tariffs on semiconductor imports from firms who are not moving production to the U.S. Now, this was announced during Trump's Tech Bro White House summit. A lot of people sort of criticized as being, the worst people in the world in one room. And he specifically called out some names of people who were okay. When he made this announcement, he was like, oh yeah, you have to bring manufacturing to the U.S. For example, I think Tim Cook's going to be okay. I love how Trump thinks him and Tim Cook are buddies now. And I can't imagine how much Tim Cook hates him. It's got to be like, you could probably feel it if you're in the room. It probably has a temperature and a density to it. Tim Cook's hate for Donald Trump. But Trump probably doesn't realize that. And if you remember the Genius Act, that was the crypto, financial bill that came out. There was this provision in it that a lot of people questioned, and ultimately it got defeated, thankfully. And that was 10 years of a moratorium on any kind of regulation for AI. Basically, for the next decade, AI companies do whatever they want. Now, that was obviously a little bit concerning, maybe a lot concerning. But there's one man who is tireless in his championing of first the telecommunication industry, but now seemingly the AI industry. And that's Ted Cruz. So Ted Cruz wants to basically put that back, but in a weird way. So under this version of it, you would ask whatever agency is restricting you from doing your AI stuff, hey, we'd like an exemption from this. But if that government agency says no to that exemption, you can then appeal to the White House, who we know has a pretty lenient idea of what AI regulation should be. So Ted, still working hard. Whatever they're paying him, they're getting their money's worth. And you know who else is going to get their money's worth? The FTC and all of us, unfortunately, because there are so many of us that were affected by this. It's going to be a small number because Google is going to pay $425.7 million for smartphone snooping. This is when they were listening to us, even though they gave us some controls that made us think maybe they weren't listening to us, but of course they always were. It's also funny how a lot of people have empirically noticed that when you discuss things around your phone, you'll get advertised for them. And for a long time, a lot of people said, oh, you're crazy. You're imagining that. Well, it was real. I think we all know that at this point. Unfortunately, the scope of this is between 2016 and 2024, and it comes down to about $4 per device. Not everybody will sign up to get their money. you might get $10 per device. I've had several devices during that time frame running Android. I could possibly purchase a fast food meal with what I would get paid by this. I haven't signed up. I don't know how you do that. I didn't get details in the article. I don't think it's been decided yet. And we learned recently that the chatbots were, they're really willing to get sexy with you, especially Grok and Meta's version of it. And they didn't really pay a lot of attention to your age. That was supposed to be a big thing. And so they figured out that now, often this is researchers who set up an account as if it were a 13-year-old or something like that and purposely try to, they were trapping the AI, some might argue. But the AI was very willing to get sexy with them. And so now the FTC getting in there, they're going to start looking into it. They're going to try and figure out what's going on. They want them to turn over some stuff. They're going to study if it was bad for them. And, you know, how do you deal with that? Someone should probably tell the FCC that teenagers actually have a lot of sex. Maybe not people that work for the FTC. Maybe their childhood was different. And the Chinese-American trade war, you know, it's ongoing. And they're always trying to get the upper hand. And if you know just a little bit about what the other person is coming in or bringing to the table in the next meeting, that can be a huge advantage. And China, as usual, and let's be fair here, U.S. is probably doing the same thing. They're willing to go a long way to get that information. And so Chinese hackers pretended to be a top lawmaker during trade talks. This was in an email or a series of emails that were sent out. This guy has a cool name. I don't remember what it is, but let me find it here. Moulinar. John Moulinar from Michigan was the man who was being impersonated. And they sent out some emails and they were like, oh, hey, let's get some talking points for this next meeting. What's on your mind? What are we going to bring up and so forth? So they were trying to figure out what was going on beforehand. This has also happened before in China. One of the top industry guys in China was impersonated. And they attributed to this one of those advanced persistent threat groups, APT41. Wait, is it? Maybe that's the one. I don't remember. Usually I can go back and look up these details while someone else is talking. But now I don't have that crutch. I'm exposed. And here's something that we've heard since at least, I think this started in earnest with like the Mortal Kombat days. So that was what? Early 90s? And a lot of people have been claiming this for a lot of time. It's been debunked over and over and over. And also, it's kind of crazy because this wouldn't be a new thing. People have been playing video games for a very long time. And the clickbait headline doesn't say what it is, but I've already revealed it. It's video games. RFK says that not just video games. He also said social media might have something to do with it. I would say social media, probably a lot more than video games. But yeah. He was under the gun. He needed to come up with something, and that's an easy button excuse. And spyware, commercial spyware. It's out there, and we've learned from the past that if someone gets a hold of it, especially a government, they're going to misuse it. There's been countless instances. Greece, Italy uses it a lot. A lot of the Middle Eastern countries use it. Obviously, China, Russia, so forth, and the United States. But up until now, it's kind of been like, yeah, they build that over there and we don't really want it and we would never use it, even though we were using it. But now the cat's kind of out of the bag. This isn't really the government doing this. I maybe should have put this in the regular business section. But when it says the U.S. is now the largest investor in commercial spyware, they don't mean the government. They mean venture capital. But as we've seen with the previously mentioned White House Tech Summit, those lines are blurring. And there's no doubt that the government is going to benefit from and use this. So what used to be kind of a niche, Israel obviously did a lot of this, but now the big money says, hey, this is a growth industry. Let's throw our venture capital at it. So expect it to get better. rapidly. And we all know that if you call for support, you're either going to get a robot or someone with a very tenuous grasp on your language. And that may be switching to all robot, because the U.S. is proposing an outsourcing tax. I believe this was 25%. So if you're a company that uses IT or support or whatever overseas, yes, 25% tax will be applied to that. And there was a lot of talk in here, and I see this a lot, which is to say, they use flowery language to say, well, we just think that the Americans are too stupid for that, which I don't think that holds any water. I think the Americans just want to get paid. And the Indians are happy getting paid very little because they have a very low cost of living. Why don't you just put your IT call centers in the poorest parts of the country? And we talked about Verizon and their selling of your location data. They were doing that. They didn't give you a way to opt out of it. They didn't tell you about it. They just sold it. And we learned, I think it was last week or the week before, their response to those charges was, that's not illegal. We're allowed to do that. We're allowed to do whatever we want. Well, the judge has reviewed that, and he's rejected it. He says that it's a very stupid defense and very poor defense. Now, AT&T went a different way. AT&T questioned the constitutional right for the judge to do that, or the court to do that, or whatever. And they might have made some other arguments, but whatever their arguments were, or whoever their friends were, maybe Ted Cruz helped them out, they got away with theirs. So Verizon, not okay. AT&T, okay for doing the same thing, just because they made different arguments against it. Same crime, but one had a better explanation than the other, and somehow theirs is not a crime. As a layman with no law degree, that feels wrong to me. What do you guys think about that? Engagement challenge. And moving to the EU is more and more not getting technology, not getting social media, not getting things, because they're making laws that require those things to follow certain rules that the companies just simply aren't willing to follow. And now they won't be speaking cross-border because of that. Because the AirPods have been released that will live translate your conversations using AI, but not in the EU. Probably because of GDPR, probably because they are saving those conversations, probably because they are using them to train future versions of this to check for accuracy. And that would be illegal in various parts of Europe, probably the entire EU. So they're just not going to let them do it, which seems to be a thing that we're having more and more of. And shout out to the Germans and the Luxembourgians. Luxembros. What is that word? I don't know that word. But they are standing up to the chat control, which is the nickname that they're giving to the breaking of encryption in the EU. You're not allowed to have end-to-end encryption because they want to be able to look at all your chats and everything. And Germany and Luxembourg have joined a number of other EU states that are voting against this, or at least claim that they're going to vote against this. The vote has not happened yet. That will be on September 12th. Wait, that's today. That's the day I'm filming this. But we won't know the answer until next week. So don't read any news. Wait till we tell you next week. And Albania made a wild claim recently about something that they were going to do. And it kind of felt like, they're just looking for a headline. No, that is not. They were not looking for a headline. They've done it. They've appointed an AI bot. So this AI bot is in charge of government funding, government grants, money that is being paid by the government for various things. They claim that the corruption is so bad and everybody in government is so corrupt that only an AI could be fair here. But I have a feeling that someone will figure out a way to get the AI to do what they want here. We'll see. There's certainly going to be an interesting comparison. Is life better under a soulless robot overlord or hopelessly corrupt politicians? It's not a great choice, but we've never tried it the other way, so we'll see. I mean, we won't see. Albania will see. And the world will be watching. And we have a story about China here that we've kind of already known, but someone did a good job. I don't know if AP did this directly, but this is the AP story. They really got the receipts here and show that the mass detention and surveillance in China is run mostly by Western technology and Western companies. And a lot of these companies are on record saying, we don't know anything about that. We didn't participate in this. But some of the emails that have been unearthed here, there were some leaked emails, kind of seems like they knew exactly what was going on. And it kind of seems like some of them were advertising these kinds of features. There were some big names in here. IBM was in there. I think maybe Oracle. I don't know. You double check me on that one. But all these technology companies are, and this is the Uyghurs, not just the Uyghurs, but and then the Hong Kong crackdown and stuff like that. There are certainly portions of China who get more attention. And they describe some of the, one guy was beaten. He was trying to protest his home being taken, because China does all these big giant projects like the hydroelectric projects and roads and stuff. And if they want your house, they just take it, basically. And this guy was going to protest, and every time he would start to go to protest, they would already know, and they would beat him. And then he described how in the hospital there was a camera hanging from his IV drip. All Western technology. Unfortunate. Unfortunately, probably a preview of our future. But China is not alone. There are a lot of governments, I would say any government that wants to spy on everybody, and Pakistan has stepped up. Pakistan having an interesting time right now. Of course, they have their spat with India and some internal strife politically. So they are basically looking at everybody, celebrating this technology that can do a very, very large number of surveillance on individual internet users and block a lot of websites. And here's one that this is a little bit older, and most of you probably know that this is, things have gotten worse in Nepal. But before things got worse, they undid the social media ban, which seemed to be the match that lit the spark, or lit the fire. Now, the fire was already, we could use Wendell's oily rags metaphor here. Things had been building up. There was a lot of problems, but it seemed like the Gen Z, if you turn off their social media, that's the breaking point. And they burned Parliament. They have continued to burn things, I think. The leaders escaped via helicopter off the roof of the government building, which harkens back to Vietnam. I don't know how many of you remember that. But things are bad, and it seems like losing Facebook and Instagram were what brought about the revolution. I'm kind of cynical. I love a good revolution. I support revolution usually, but you always have to wonder, is the CIA or Mossad in here doing this? Is there a bigger game afoot? I suppose maybe someday we'll learn. Oh, what have I done? Oh, no. Oh, man. Let me try to merge this back in where it goes. Here we go. Perfect. Oh, the New York Times website. It doesn't even let you see the title. What claims is he telling us? He's telling us about security. So this fella used to be a security, I don't know if he was the chief security officer or some high-ranking Meta security person. And he claims a story that we've heard a lot about Meta, in which that he sent many emails and raised his hands in a lot of meetings and pointed out the really, really terrible security situation, and that something should be done about it. And he was basically told to shut up and eventually fired. Now, it is true that, someone who was fired might have an axe to grind, but the New York Times does a good job of pointing out a lot of previous Meta employees who've been fired who've said the same kinds of things, not just necessarily about the security, but there was the woman who wrote the Careless People book who pointed out a lot of this same kind of stuff. And basically that we don't really care about stuff like that. Don't bother the upper echelon. The C-suite of Meta doesn't want to hear about the details, especially if the details are bad. They want to hear about making money and doing what they say. So he's got some pretty good receipts. You should check that out. And here's something that you should also know is happening, and it's happening everywhere. They blame the usual suspects here, but don't think for a minute that every government who can isn't taking advantage of this, which is Facebook ads. If you don't know how Facebook ads work, or Google and Facebook here actually, you put in keywords, you put in a bid, and if your bid is the highest, when someone searches for those keywords, your ad shows. So obviously they pick really sensitive topics like Palestine or, climate, something like that. And they get their ads to the top. It's just crazy how so many people are influenced by ads. And maybe we don't even think about it. Maybe you're just seeing it out of the corner of your eye and that's some kind of, subconscious thing. But it's wild that something that you would think most people would ignore, they're willing to spend a lot of money on to try and influence people. But yeah, watch out for that. Watch out for ads. And Snapchat, apparently, at least in Denmark, it's where you get the drugs. Because the Danish study has pointed out that, you can get all kinds of drugs. And they weren't even creative or circumspect about it. The names of the users were Coke, Weed, and Molly. I guess girls named Molly probably get a lot of DMs that are not about what they want them to be about. And I've heard of this before. Yeah, I've heard of people selling drugs on Snapchat. I remember in Florida they busted a drug ring that was using Snapchat. And it's weird because, the snaps, supposedly they disappear. They don't disappear. They proved that in that court case. We already knew it. But yeah, they can go back any amount of time and get all of those. So it's probably just a matter of the volume of it. And no one's willing to go and just go and round them up. But what a terrible way to sell drugs. If you're looking for OPSEC for your drug dealing operation, I would say step one, don't put it on social media. Ever. How do you reach the kids? I don't know. You got to Google ads maybe. Yeah, they don't care what you do. "23 minutes. I think that's pretty impressive for being here by myself. 23 minutes. This week is very oddly distributed as well. Wednesday will probably be short. Friday will be long. I thought about changing things around, but we've already modified so many things that I know some of you fear change, and I don't want to, it's going to be too much of a shock, right? So, if you are disgusted by what you've just witnessed and you think, I want nothing to do with this, well, come back next Tuesday, when hopefully Krista at least will be back. I don't know what Wendell's schedule is. We might get lucky and have everybody. But we will hear about Krista's trek, her 3-week odyssey in the woods. Did she encounter a squatch? Was there a brief romance? We don't know. We'll find out, and you should definitely check that out. But you should also check out tomorrow and Friday because I desperately need you. I have no friends. Who will I share my links with? I need your parasocial energy for the rest of the week. I'll see you then.